People are signing on, if that's okay with you.
Sure, not a problem.
No, if you look at the bottom.
Okay, we'll give it about 2 more minutes and then we'll start, okay? Okay, 1 more minute. Okay, I'm going to get started. So first of all, I want to welcome everybody to Connected Martin's March meeting. We thank everyone for being with us tonight. And we thank Superintendent Maine. And for those of you who don't know Mr. Maine, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background. And of course, he can add to that if he'd like to. Mr. Maine earned his undergraduate degree from the University of South Florida and his graduate degree in educational administration from the University of Scranton. He began his career with the Martin County School District as the Executive Director of Principals and Professional Standards in 2021, before being promoted as Deputy Superintendent in 2022. Prior to his arrival in the district, he spent many years as an educator and administrator in the Hernando County School District. He's currently a doctoral student pursuing a degree in educational leadership at Capella University. I want to thank you all for being here. And tonight, Sydney Thomas and Melissa Burke will be facilitating, so I'm going to turn it over to them. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
So to start off, I'll just let you know like what the meeting is kind of going to go like. So we have 5 questions that have been submitted through Connected Martin, both from the community members as well as the co-chairs. They are regarding book removals, teacher retention, teachers in field, Kelly education, and then the district level positions. And then at the end, we'll be monitoring the chat. So if there are any questions that anyone has during this meeting, pop them into the chat and hopefully we'll have time to ask those as well. But before we dive into the questions, we just really wanted to thank you for your efforts with the town hall series. It's really unique and it shows such a huge effort for you and the district to want community feedback and input. And I know that that's a lot of time and resource. The topics are very helpful and we also have really appreciated your response to the community's feedback after the first meeting. And want you to know that Connected Martin is really encouraging community members the best that we can to attend those town hall meetings, because it is a really unique opportunity that is not always offered in districts. So we just wanted to thank you for that.
No problem. Thank you. And there's a great showing tonight, so this is fantastic. If the town hall meetings, fail to gain traction as far as people coming, because the last one was pretty lightly attended, then maybe a Zoom format or some type of platform like this would be an option as well. I'm not opposed to looking at different avenues that we can reach the constituents. So
Yeah, that's always a tricky balance, right? The
Yes.
in-person touch plus the
It should be something.
accessibility of Zoom.
absolutely.
Our
Um,
experience has actually been that in-person has been more successful. We were just talking amongst us about the time difference between the first one and the second one. A lot of parents aren't off of work at 5:30 when it started. The second town hall started at 5:30. So possibly a later time would be more convenient for working parents.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
might not make a difference at all.
We're always willing to try different things, so it's good.
So our first question is regarding the book removals, the book bans, and the community's response to that. So it's pretty clear over the course of time that there are books that have been inappropriately removed from circulation as part of this nationwide effort, which is led by a identified extremist group. The book challenge has really ignited this community, and it really has a lot to do with how Connected Martin got a lot of traction in membership. We do understand about the directives and the legal aspect of this, but in our specific county, there's a policy that makes it really difficult. There is no policy for getting books that we really know were inappropriately removed from the shelves back on the shelves. There's no policy for that, despite a ton of community effort and action. So it's a two-part question. We have heard some talk at some school board meetings about there being community-led committees, as there are in other districts, to help with this book banning issue. So where is the action for community-led communities for the district and book banning, and what steps are going to be taken to reevaluate some of these banned books to get them back if they were removed inappropriately?
So that's a fair question. So what I will tell you, and Mrs. Deffenthaler will be more aware of this, is we are a Neola district. So Neola is the organization that our district chooses to use to help guide and write all of our school board policies in reference to state statute. So in the past, some of our policies have been written by the school board, because the school board's governance is to write policy and to also oversee the budget. However, in recent years, our board has began to move away from writing their own policies and sticking exclusively to Neola policies. So we're in the process of taking all of the policies that are currently on the books that the district involved themselves in writing and creating themselves, and going purely with Neola policies that are written by the Neola organization that are directly aligned to statute. So I provide that background information for those of you that may not know, because our policies that the board has chosen to adopt will be aligned to Neola, which align to then state statute, which means that I do not believe our board will entertain going outside of those policies that are set by Neola to write a policy that would allow some form of book review by an entity to allow those books to go back on the shelf. So I hope that makes sense, because I'm trying to navigate that statutorily, and also keep in mind that the board must direct me through policy change to put a committee together to review books that have been removed, to then decide whether or not certain books within the ones that have been removed can be placed on the shelf. So am not opposed to reviewing those books, but I have to review those books based on policy. Policy would need to be changed and or adopted by the board for that process to play out. And our district is a Neola district, therefore those policies are all going to be statutorily driven, and there is currently not statute or a way forward as it's currently written right now. Neola is, I'm just checking your chat right there. Neola is all capital letters, Neola. Neola. So it is a group. There are other Neola districts in the state. Neola is also national. Not every district in the state of Florida is a Neola district. So it's just important to note that that's what the Martin County School District Board has chosen to follow.
Mr.
So-
Maine, do you know of other districts that are in Florida that are Neola districts? And an example, I guess, of those. And I just want to clarify that also what I'm hearing is that you already know that Neola has no policy for re-evaluating removed books. So
That is correct.
okay. And
So
then, yeah, do you know other districts?
So I'm gonna, off the top of my head, I can get you a list. Jen DeShazo's on the call. She may know of some other Neola districts. But what I would say is periodically we received, well, not periodically, very, very often we'll receive Neola updates. So as statute makes its way, or as language makes its way through the legislative session, come July 1st, whenever the governor signs off on, or whenever the governor signs off on the bills and they go into effect July 1st, Neola policy writers will go into full steam to craft and update all of our policies to be in alignment with new statute, okay, language. And then we will get an email notification from Neola that tells us that we need to adopt the new policy and bring those policies forward to the board for review and action. Now, there are several times where there could be options for the board to choose from within those Neola policies. So Neola does give different boards local flexibility to decide within statute what language they would like to choose and adopt or not choose and adopt. The board selects those, and then we submit them to Neola, and Neola then approves them as a Martin County School Board policy. So in the event that we are sued by an outside entity, Neola would then stand behind their language within statute and represent the district as an adopted policy that's aligned to statute, if that makes sense. So if we were, to your question, Ms. Thomas, if the board was to receive a policy from Neola that allowed for there to be a process by which the district could follow to review a removed book, to place it back on the shelf, we could bring that policy forward to the board. The board could review that policy and choose to adopt the policy or not adopt the policy. That would be up to the board based on statutory language. There are districts, and I will be 100% honest and transparent, and I talked to Ms. Burke about this at the first town hall meeting. There are districts that are choosing to, they could be a Neola district, they may not be a Neola district. I don't know all of the districts that aren't, but I could certainly do some research and get you a list, that might have their boards, might have given their superintendents more flexibility. Okay, there may be more gray area based on the makeup of that board. In Martin County, we are not one of those districts. The board is very clear that they will follow statute, and I have been given no flexibility to go outside of those guidelines of statute and the board and the law. If there were gray areas that the board has given me permission to go outside of and to have some flexibility, I would most certainly operate within those areas of flexibility. However, in Martin County, the board, I have to follow the board's direction, and the board's direction is to stay within the guidelines of the state.
So which board approved doing business with Neola? At what
So-
point was that? What year? Or
So
how many
we have,
years ago?
thank you. So Ms. Burke, we have policies that go back all the way to 2004. When I'm reviewing policies with Diane Falls, that's the process. She will bring the policies forward that are the oldest. So we look at 2004 policies, we have 2009 policies, and we have some that are 2012. Those are extremely outdated. Those are the ones that we are working on first to bring into alignment with the most updated policies from Neola. So given the fact that we have policies that go all the way back to 2004, and I believe there's even some that are 2002, it leads me to believe that this was a board back many boards prior, from as early as 2002, that chose to adopt some Neola policies. But I will also say that there were times when individual board members and the board decided to take Neola policy and write their own policy or change Neola policies to the extent that Neola would no longer accept them as one of their policies, okay? Because if the board changes a certain percentage of language within the Neola policy, Neola will no longer accept it as one of their policies, and the board stands on their own accord should that policy be challenged.
Mhm.
May I
So-
say something? May I say
Yes, ma'am.
something, Mr. Maine?
Yes, yep.
So I understand Neola. I reviewed policies. So to answer your question, Melissa, as of 2022, when I was on the board, we were still revising Neola policy. So it's this board that has made that change. That's what I see as Mr. Maine, because when I was on there, we were still able to, or still deciding to put some of our own wording in there. So it has to be this board that has made that change.
So, Ms. Burke, to clarify your question, were you asking me if it was this board's decision to adopt only Neola policy exclusively and to not
Great.
add language? Okay.
So because I see it like there's got to be a cost involved with doing business with Neola and having them write our policy. And I hope everybody on this call understands that as school board members, their actual two jobs are to write policy and to oversee the budget. And we're paying those 5 school board members a hefty salary, insurance, some retirement because they've been around so long, to really just sign off on what the state already says. So I don't understand why we need 5 elected school board representatives anymore. If all we're going to do is follow state statute 100%, we should save our county and our state money and get rid of them.
So we are taking those Neola policies as they come out, and we are bringing them forward to the board. And you saw if you were able to watch last night's workshop, there were a list of policies, and we will do that. That's what we're doing. We're bringing them forward to workshop for first read, then they go through second read, and then there's an approval. So
it's interesting. All right, Sydney, you want to take teacher retention?
Yeah. So towards the beginning of the year, I know that the district put a lot of effort in doing an analysis on why teachers left the district and at what point in time they left the district. And it really came out with 3 main areas of concern. We've heard a lot about the way the district is addressing the top 2 areas of concern, but it really didn't seem like the 3rd area of concern was directly addressed in that. And I know that it's because of negotiations, but the one area that didn't get a lot of attention in that conversation is pay and compensation. So what is the district doing in order to improve teacher retention and in the area of compensation?
So let's start with compensation first, because that's probably the latest. So the latest right now is the board initially started with a little over $1 million, right at $1 million with their first offer. They're up to 1.5 million now as of the second latest option. The second option that they put on the table that MCEA is currently reviewing gives $85 for every year of teaching experience in total. So if a teacher has 10 years of teaching experience, $85 times the 10 years of experience, that's $850 combined with the governor's TSIA money, and that's their total raise pool amount. That $85 per year times each year of service is placed into their base salary and is FRS reported. If you are a 20-year teacher, you'll get $85 times your 20 years and then so forth up to 30 years. The board did cap it at 30 years at $3,000. So any teacher from 30 years above, and we do have a teacher in the district that has 45 years of service, which is phenomenal. They would be capped though at the $3,000 because the raise pool money ran out, right? So they take the money that they put towards the raise and they go as far as they can with the years of service. They originally started out at $100 per years of service, but the money didn't go as far. They would have had to cap it at 20 years instead of being able to go to 30 years. So they lowered the $100 to $85 to be able to go out to 30 years. So I believe this is, and in all of my research, this is not the first time they've brought this forward with years of service, but it's been a very long time since the board has entertained the idea of putting a dollar amount towards years of service. So historically, the board has taken the governor's TSIA money and put it all towards our beginning teachers, then took the raise pool amount and again, put it towards the younger, I shouldn't say younger because they're not, it doesn't matter about age, but the less seasoned teachers, and gave less to our veteran teachers, which is what created what we call a compression issue with the salary schedule. You had younger teachers, less seasoned teachers from 0 years to about 10 years that were making just as much as teachers that were in the higher categories. The reason why I like the latest proposal is because we're finally giving teachers at the higher end of years of service the additional money to help close that gap with the compression. Now, you're going to see a salary schedule presentation by Carter Morrison at the next board meeting, this next upcoming board meeting, where we are taking St. Lucie, that latest proposal by the board with all of our teachers, and then we're going to take St. Lucie County and we're going to take Indian River County and we're going to run their salary schedules side by side with ours. So we can show all of the public exactly where we are when it comes to competitiveness. And I will tell you that when we run our teachers' numbers, our actual teacher salaries up against St. Lucie and Indian River, when we talk about base salary, so I'm not including the supplements they receive and all of that because every teacher is a little different. With the new proposal, our base salary beats Indian River, or will, if accepted by MCA, beats Indian River and will beat St. Lucie. Now, where there's still a little bit of gap is in some years of 22 years of service to 26 years of service for St. Lucie. And there is a little gap year 10 to year, I want to say 18 for Indian River. But when you look at the gap, it's $350, $450. The most one of our teachers would be able to leave and make going to St. Lucie or Indian River would be about $2,000. Okay. So, and when you look at those individual teacher situations, each of those teachers, one might not have been highly effective or effective. So they didn't get the raise each year that would have kept them on pace. So they fell behind, and or they didn't bring in their prior years of service from their prior district. So they just didn't, they have a certain number of days to do that. They might not have done that. So it created a pay gap for them larger than what the other gaps were. So I hope you're following that, because it's very complicated, but I'm trying my best to walk you through the steps.
I appreciate that.
But I will tell you, That's what made me as superintendent look at those and say, okay, you know what? As much as I worried about whether or not we are, because I want us, we have to be competitive. We have to keep up. I don't want to lose these teachers. When you look at those salary schedules side by side, you very quickly realize that we are right there. And in many cases, we are ahead. And so I encourage you to come to the salary schedule presentation. I'm doing that purposefully so that the public can see that information side by side. We are getting ready to send out a document to all of our teaching staff that allows them to take their salary, like a salary calculator, if you will, and put their name in and show exactly where they are on the schedule and where they would be in St. Lucie and where they would be in Indian River. Now, I noticed in your chat, somebody asked about Palm Beach County. That's a fair question, but we don't compare ourselves to Palm Beach because we just can't compete with Palm Beach. A teacher definitely can leave here. I'm not using that as an excuse, but they just pay extremely higher. They've got a very higher tax bracket than we do, even though our tax bracket is high. They've got a higher one, and you could leave here easily and make $10,000 to $12,000 a year more. We compare ourselves to the Treasure Coast districts, and we always have tried to at least do that. Now, with those pay discrepancies that I talked about, there are some red categories where I explained that you have some different teacher scenarios. When you add our millage, and I know the millage is not part of base pay, but I just want to have the
Superintendent is
Yes.
speaking about
Okay,
salary.
right.
Hey, Nancy, can you mute, please? There we go.
So I know the millage is not part of base salary, and so I don't want to get in the weeds with that. However, the other districts, Indian River County does not pay a millage. St. Lucie County does pay a millage. So when you add our millage in, right, that we do give, thanks to the taxpayers and to our constituents that approve that, those little red gaps go to green, and we are green all the way down to beat St. Lucie and to beat Indian River when you look all the way across the board at all of those pieces.
I think we're probably going to have some follow-up questions regarding that.
Yep.
I see some of them coming through. Let's table those so we can make sure we can get to the next few questions. But thank you for that explanation. The next question is about out of field teaching. I know that if you were to look at our ratios for open positions with instructional, as a parent, it never feels great when there aren't teachers filling your student's classroom. As a percentage, I know that we've been compared, and that even though it's not perfect, that we are relatively in a good position with percentage of filled instructional positions. But how many of these teachers in core areas are out of field? How many of them are holding positions? How do we compare to other districts? And don't you have concerns about that with our test scores? Because I know that it's our goal to be an A and be the top district, and having a bunch of out of field teachers, it matters.
It does. It absolutely does. And these are fantastic questions, by the way. I mean, these are things that I wish more people were listening to, because they are huge issues. I will tell you that throughout the district, there are out of field teachers. We have every board meeting, there is an attachment on the board docs that shows out of field teachers. We are required by statutory rule to upload the list of names of all out of field teachers. Most of those out of field teachers are in the ESOL endorsement requirement category. So you will see a lot of teachers that show that they are out of field because they have started their ESOL requirement but have not yet completed their ESOL endorsement, which means they're going to show out of field. So in fairness to the list that's pretty lengthy, I want to be able to explain the proper thing. So anytime a teacher receives a student in their classroom that is a non-English speaking student, their clock starts immediately for them to have to start taking the ESOL coursework and or requirements to receive the ESOL endorsement. Okay. So that immediately puts a teacher out of field because they're required to have that. There are also times where we have a career changer. We have a teacher who's changed careers, and that seems to be the norm nowadays. People are not going into the education profession. It's very sad. And so we are hiring a lot of teachers that are outside realtors, business world people, military. They say, hey, I want to be a teacher. And so we need people. We need people with passion for kids. We hire them because we can. They've got a temporary certificate, but they are out of field because maybe they are teaching social studies, but they have a degree in economics, or they have a degree in business, or they're working on their temporary teaching certificate to be able to then turn that into a professional certification. So I wish I had the magic wand to be able to wave and say, you know what, every person that we hire to put up in front of kids is coming from a traditional school of education. Because when they graduate from a traditional school of education, as Ms. Wells knows, and those of you that are former educators, you graduate with your ESOL endorsement, you graduate with your reading endorsement, and you graduate as a education major. So you are considered in field, but that's not the norm anymore. St. Lucie County is dealing with it. Every district in the state of Florida across the nation is dealing with out of field teachers. I could have my elementary certification, K6, but then decide, you know what? I want to teach 7th grade math. I have a passion to teach 7th grade math. I apply for a 7th grade math position. The principal hires me. Guess what? I'm out of field because my certification is elementary K6. So until I take the math endorsement and add it to my certificate, I'm out of field. So there's a lot of different, it's not necessarily meaning they have someone who doesn't know what they're doing up in front of kids. It just means that they have not gone through the certification process yet to have those things added to their certificate so that then they drop off the out of field list. I hope that
It does. Do you know, so another add-on to that would be hiring teachers from out of the country. I heard, like, so what, do we know where we stack up to other districts? I'm not surprised that out of field teachers is a concern statewide. I think that that's very much related to the last question that we were talking about.
So
But yeah, how do we compare with the out of field to other districts as well as hiring from out of the country, which can often lead to some communication issues in the classroom as well?
yeah, absolutely. But it also leads to the diversification of our workforce. And I will tell you that since we went with TPG, we have more Black teachers and Hispanic teachers up in front of our students than we've ever had, honestly, before. We have 25 TPG teachers, which is you're referring to the cultural exchange teachers. We get them for 5 years on a work visa. So the only thing, we cannot, as an educational institution, sponsor J1 visas. So every school district in the state of Florida uses either a company like TPG or other companies that are out there that sponsor the visa for these foreign teachers. And because of visa rules and regulations, 5 years is the max that we can keep those teachers. But that's 5 years that in order to qualify for a J1 visa through the TPG program, you have to have a master's degree in education. You have to have taught a minimum of 5 years in your country of origin. And you have to speak English in a way that allows a principal to at least understand you and feel comfortable to put you up in front of kids. So every TPG teacher that we're getting actually has more qualifications educationally than even some of the people we're hiring that are career changers. So I want you to feel very comfortable with the TPG teachers because, to be honest with you, they're education majors. They have taught in their foreign country, their country of origin, and they have a master's degree in education. Whereas
Prior to coming here, they don't have 5 years to get it.
Correct.
Prior.
Correct.
Okay.
Prior to coming from their country. Once they arrive in the United States, we take their foreign country certification, we submit it to the Florida Department of Education, and the Florida Department of Education takes their foreign country of origin education certificate and turns it into a temporary Florida teaching certificate that covers the subject area that they taught in their country of origin. Okay.
Okay.
So Spanish teachers, math teachers, we're doing really good with math teachers, chemistry teachers, biology teachers, content area teachers from those countries. The principals are able to do a Zoom interview just like this, and they interview those teachers and hire those teachers the same way we hire our teachers here. They have an opportunity to interact with them, and they go through the same interview.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The next question is about substitutes. So just wanting you to speak on how the transition to using Kelly Education for substitutes is going. There have been, we've gotten some feedback from substitutes that have worked for many years that there have not been as many jobs posted as regularly as in the past. And if you can just speak to Kelly Education substitutes in general.
Yeah, so prior to going with Kelly Education organization, we were averaging anywhere from a 70 to 80% fill rate as a whole, as a district. And then we've got some schools that averaged even lower than that as individual schools. So like Anderson Middle School, Port Salerno Elementary, we had 5 or 6 schools that we considered hard to fill, high priority needs schools where nobody was picking up jobs. And so we struggled in the 50 to 60% fill rate range with those schools. We just didn't have enough. We as a district employed over 200 substitutes, but of those 200 substitutes, only 80 to 90 of them were active, meaning they picked up a job at least once a month to sub in our schools. And we considered that core of 80 to 90 our go-to subs. There are preferred subs, the schools would call them. They were on a name, a name basis at some of those schools, and they kept them kind of on their books on a regular basis. So when you take a pool of 200 and then you shrink it down to 80 or 90 that are active, and now you've got a district load of over 1,200 teachers in the district, we can't take 80 to 90 teachers that are active and fill 1,200, the number of vacancies that we were getting on a daily basis. So we had to do something differently. And most districts, you could choose to use Kelly, you could choose to use others. I was familiar with Kelly Services from my former district, but when you bring Kelly Services in, they are a national organization. They have huge marketing campaigns, huge ability to ramp up the number of subs that they can put in their pool where we can't necessarily do that. We were trying, we weren't getting anybody, and their pay structure is very similar to ours, but they provide bonus programs. They provide extra $50 to $60 per day to go to high need fill schools. So what they did was they took our 200, they onboarded first anybody that was interested in moving over to Kelly Services. And then what they did was they expanded the number of subs through recruitment through recruitment efforts. And they have over 400 subs that are on staff right now. Our fill rate has been averaging over 93% at all of our schools, and Anderson Middle School has been averaging 86 to 87% fill rate, up from their 50 to 60. The principals are ecstatic. People are picking up their jobs, and they're fairly. We've got some issues with some subs, but the principal is able to immediately put that sub on a do not fill list, and Kelly Services immediately takes them out of the system. So while that has created a problem for some of our subs to pick up jobs, for us as a school district, it's a good problem to have because our vacancies are being picked up, and I have someone up in front of kids versus splitting the class, dividing and conquering, no shows that day, and now the principal's scrambling to try to find somebody. So I say that because yes, we are hearing those things too, but there are some issues where people have not selected all on their call list. So if I'm a sub, I might have only selected 2 or 3 schools that I like to sub at. Well, if I only select those 2 or 3 schools, guess what? That's less opportunities for me to get picked up by another school. So we've been working with them to deselect some things in the app that they have on their phone to allow there to be more open communication to them that there are jobs available to be picked up. So
Awesome. That sounds really good. I'm happy to hear that the principals are, and I'm hearing less from my own kids about splitting classes and things like that. So that's really positive. The final question that we have, and then we'll follow up with some or then bring in questions from the chat, are we've really been curious about the change in the upper leadership at the district level. It used to be very different if you were to look at the like the flow chart for the higher level positions, and now there's like multiple assistant superintendents where we never had that before. So like there have been several positions that have changed from director into assistant superintendent. It's been a lot of restructuring. So what was the purpose, the intent of doing this? And what is at a time where I think that the general consensus is that we're having a hard time keeping teachers because of pay. And at a time when that's going on and teachers aren't feeling like they're getting paid enough, did this restructuring and having, instead of a director, is now an assistant superintendent, did this have a financial impact on our district?
Yeah, great question. And I'd be more than happy to have Carter Morrison provide the document. When I took over as superintendent, my reorg plan did include increasing the number of assistant superintendents that oversaw certain divisions and collapsing out other positions. I will tell you that the entire reorg cost the district $0. It was a completely cost neutral reorganization plan. I committed myself to the board that if I was going to bring a reorg forward as the new superintendent, it would be as close to cost neutral as possible. And it was completely 100% zero cost, completely cost neutral. So while you saw an expansion of some assistant superintendent positions, there were director positions and coordinator positions that were collapsed out. There were other positions at the district level that went unfilled and had not been filled for a number of years that we removed. All of that was kept track of on a spreadsheet that was presented to the board, that was board approved and showed the total dollar amount. So as my assistant soups were added, other positions were eliminated. Nobody lost their job. They either received a promotion or they moved in a different, or in many cases, they elevated themselves. They were moved up, but other positions were collapsed and closed out. So the reorg that I submitted last year that we're currently operating under now, right, this year, was completely cost neutral. I have asked I'm eliminating 40 positions within the district next school year, not the district office, but as a whole. It's including the district office, but as a whole, 44 instructional positions at the school level. All of our principals just went through their allocation meetings. However, all of those positions that are being eliminated, most of them are through attrition. They're either empty already, retirements, there were positions that were given that were not able to be filled. So it's not going to impact a whole lot of actual warm bodies. Why are we doing that? Because our enrollment is down. We have just a little over 16,000 students. And so as our enrollment has decreased over the last 3 to 4 years, we have not adjusted our allocations at the school-based site to address that. So that $2.6 million that we will be saving next year will go towards additional support facilitators at the middle school and high school level. I'm going to a true co-teach model, meaning every one of our our ESE classrooms will have another teacher in the classroom for a true co-teach model, 2 sets of hands for every ESE classroom. And I'm adding ESOL lead teachers to all of our our heaviest populated Spanish speaking schools. So we currently do not have ESOL teachers at all, which means that we're struggling in that area. So all of those schools will receive an additional allocation for an ESOL lead teacher that will help support non-English speaking students. So while we're taking away a little bit, we're repurposing and reallocating that money to positions that we need the most at our school site level. If I'm pulling positions away from schools, I am also taking a look at my district-based budget as well. And what I have asked all of my departments at the district is to look at a 10% decrease in each department across the board, meaning if they may have to eliminate a position, they may have to take a position off of their org chart that has not been filled that they could do without. So this is not just impacting schools, it is also impacting the district office as well. You may see some changes that come before the board over the summer for a reorg next year as well. However, please note that with the reorg will also be an attachment that shows what it is costing the taxpayers of Martin County. And I'm committed to, again, making it as cost neutral to zero as possible. I cannot send a message to principals that we're decreasing their allocations and then not do the same thing at the district office.
Mr. Maine, do you attribute this drop in enrollment to HB1 and the voucher program? And then I think an additional, I know that as a school board in Victoria, Hoppin, if I'm not phrasing it, as a school board, we do have an opportunity to advocate for things at the state level. I don't know if I've missed it, but I haven't heard us talk about trying to advocate against the voucher program, which I can only assume is directly impacting our enrollment, therefore the number of positions that we can hold, et cetera, et cetera. What are your thoughts on that?
So, Ms. Thomas, you asked a great question at the second town hall meeting, and I appreciated that one. The only one that kind of is focused on that, which was great, is highlighting this voucher program. And I think if my memory serves me correctly, I told you that we had a little over 1,000 students that were withdrawn from us that our data is showing went to homeschool. Now, while I'm not able to articulate exactly what they ended up, where they ended up going or what they ended up doing, what we can guess is that they withdrew, told us that they were going to homeschool, and then applied for the voucher through the state, and they received a voucher and then ended up going to a private school, a charter school, or some kind of a homeschool program that the parents are receiving that voucher money for. Now, what superintendents have been lobbying through Brian Moore and our Superintendents Association is that we were supposed to be receiving a roster from the state of Florida on every single one of those students. And when they applied for a voucher through the state was supposed to be keeping a list and would send the list monthly to superintendents, so we knew exactly where those parents said they were bringing their kids. We have yet to receive those rosters, so we have no way of knowing or keeping track of where the students go once they tell us they're withdrawing from our school system. So if I have over 1,000 students that have withdrawn over the last couple of years to go into homeschool, I can only guess that our vouchers are over 1,000. And you combine that with students that were already in TCCA or already in one of our charters or Joe's or any one of our other schools, and you can see where the decreased enrollment is coming from. I will tell you that most of those numbers are coming from middle school. They're with us kindergarten through 5th grade. We see them withdraw before they go to middle school, and then they come back to us for a traditional high school experience in 9th grade. So we see them come back, but we lose them for that middle school period of time, which is 3 years. And it's a big chunk of our decrease in enrollment. You will see, and that's a lot of FTE dollars. So you will see campaigns that we have been putting out recently to bring students into the Martin County School District. I spoke about it on the radio show this morning. I'll tell you again today that there is a misnomer that when students come across county line and enter into our school district, that the Martin County taxpayers are the ones footing the bill for those students. In Florida, the statute was changed a couple of years ago that the money follows the student. So just like when a student withdraws from us and goes to charter or leaves and goes to private and the money follows them through the vouchers, likewise, when a student leaves St. Lucie and comes to Martin County, the money leaves St. Lucie and comes to Martin. So the taxpayers are not necessarily footing the bill if the family still lives in St. Lucie. The school district received the money for that student and is equated into our total FTE as we teach those students. So we have to do something. If I'm losing students to vouchers, then I have to open up our county to allowing others to come in, which is statutorily driven anyways, so that we can provide them the best education that we possibly can. That was happening already. It was just that we made it a point now to say, well, if you're coming already and I'm down over 400 to 500 students in middle school, then I'm going to keep losing dollars that we can use to pay teachers and buy resources. So we might as well try to get out ahead of it and invite students to come to our district.
And I
So-
know that was, Martin School District was, in the past, when I first moved here years ago, that was the coveted place to have your students, and teachers would get jobs here specifically so their students could attend. We did want you to know, I don't know if you saw, but we did interview Toby Overdorf, and we asked him about HB1. And when we asked him about why he voted for it, he had the misunderstanding, and we can send you the interview if you'd like, but he had the misunderstanding that every family was getting a check for $8,000 to spend on education, how they see fit, in addition to them enrolling in schools. So my students attend one of the Martin County middle schools as general education students, and he was under the impression that even though they were going there, I got a big fat check for supplemental, and he voted yes for it. And I think that's it was mind-blowing for us to have that situation with someone who voted for a bill that he didn't understand, and also some concern with having the board advocate at the state level and send representatives to advocate for this, because it is hurting our district. And then Melissa, I think I might be breaking up. I'm seeing my video spotty, so I'll let you take over for the rest. I know we have about 10 minutes.
Yep, I was going to follow up on a comment in regards to if our students are exiting in the middle school age group, and instead of, this is what I heard, instead of fixing the problems at the middle school level, we are advertising to, and I heard it at the meeting, that Bessie Creek is practically full, that they would just put portables all over, which means taxpayers would be renting portables to put around Bessie Creek if people wanted to come there, that they would take as many elementary students, that they could. So we'll make up the numbers with elementary students. If you fill our elementaries with students from wherever, and in fifth grade, at the end of fifth grade, they leave anyways, you're going to have just a cycle of it. And I think, we spoke about this off record the other day, that what is happening in the middle schools in Martin County, there's quite a few parents on here too. It's not the same as it was 5 years ago. There has to be some major shifts and changes. We got to fix the problem. Building the bridge just to open school choice to all different counties sounds like just a Band-Aid.
So Ms. Burke, yes, I hear what you're saying, and I agree wholeheartedly with you. We might as well, we can flip our middle schools completely upside down and start over. I'll be the first to tell you that we have our biggest issue as a district is our middle schools. But I need time to be able to get in there, roll up my sleeves, and really begin to take a look at what flipping a middle school upside down and starting over looks like. Because to be completely honest with you, there are multiple different things happening at one time, and we're having to approach these things from multiple different angles. You've got broken homes, you've got kids being raised by grandma and grandpa now, you've got kids that are not, our kids today are not the same kids 5, 6 years ago. Things have drastically and rapidly changed in
Right.
Martin County.
And they also haven't had the same education. And so
Absolutely.
I'm looking, right. So I'm looking at test scores. And if we're going to move our district forward to an A district, and that's the 90-day, the plan, if we have fourth graders that are not proficient in math on December's testing, a lot of our elementaries, when I look at the state data in Martin County, once again, those students are going to be middle schoolers. And the problem is that parents are frustrated because our kids are behind when they're hitting middle school. They're not at the same level as our students were 5 years ago. And then we have a lot of warm bodies in our middle schools. We have a lot of the out of country teachers, which I appreciate your comments for that we brought up our population of Black and Hispanic, but understand that I have always said this as a mom who went to Port Salerno Elementary. It is not about having the same skin color when you're Black or Spanish. It is about understanding the culture. And the teacher from Africa does not have the same culture as the students from Booker Park or Petway in Hope Sound. It is completely different. Just like there's 30 different dialects and cultures at Port Salerno Elementary. So if you have a white woman like me teaching, who's bilingual, teaching there, it's not the same. So that doesn't really, just understand that having the same skin color is not the same as understanding our culture. And it is a difficult thing that I am hearing from your staff. I'm hearing it from the teachers that are here from the other countries. So those are concerns, and that's at your middle school.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
those are new issues. Those are not shaking up a school. Those are things that have
sure.
just happened here.
But I also feel like it's a community-wide issue that we all need to tackle together. This can't solely be squared upon the school district to solve all of the problems that we have generationally and through our, just the family dynamic changing. Yes, I agree with you that a teacher from Africa that happens to be the same skin color is not the same cultural as Booker Park. However, for the first time, that student is seeing a teacher in front of the classroom that is the same skin color. Okay.
They haven't had the same experiences.
I understand that, but I'm going to put a single white teacher in front of that kid and expect them to see any motivation to say, oh, okay, there's a Black teacher up in front of me, or there's a Hispanic teacher up in front of me, and I can aspire to be a teacher, and I could that is a step in the right direction. Because if I'm going to be real with you, I'll be the first to tell you that the reason why we haven't kept up as much as we should have is because we rest on our laurels to think that our affluent white students are going to keep producing and keep providing and going to keep Martin County on top. And we have not kept up with the changes. We don't provide the remediation services that we need to for our students. We haven't been making sure that our Black students and our Hispanic students have been taken care of. This doesn't start with me, Mrs. Burke, this year. This has been going on for years.
And that's a funding issue, if we're real honest, because we have a gap in services for those kids that are not the lowest quartile. So those kids between that 60 and 30%, they're not getting any services, and the teachers don't have time for remediation. So it's a funding issue. So seeing our board advocate to our state representatives for funding is what we need. We're looking, it's what I would encourage everybody to ask for this year.
Hey, Melissa, I just wanted to prompt you on it's 7:28. So I just wanted to see if there was any other.
Oh, there's one last one that was one that came up on here. You brought up negotiations in your offers, and we did receive quite a few text messages and emails over the weekend in regards to a video that you sent to staff.
Yes, ma'am.
And one question that comes up over and over is comments about your offer and the school board's offer. In reality, if the association, because it's not a union, correct? So words matter. And in that video, there was a lot of union comments. It's not, it's an association. So if the association was to counter during those negotiations, what power does the other side have sitting there? Are they able to accept that or negotiate?
Yeah, so yes, within reason, there are definitely language parameters. For instance, when our team went into that last negotiation round, and I've got to be careful what I get into because it's bargaining and I'm not allowed to talk about certain things. So you'll just have to.
But you mentioned the proposal at the beginning, so that's why I brought it up.
But what I want to say is when the team goes in, they've been given parameters that they are absolutely allowed to have a range of things that they could agree to or not agree to. Anything outside of those parameters does need to be brought back to the next executive session for our board to talk about. But they are given flexibility that, hey, if the union is able to come back and say they agree to this language, they agree to this language, language, they agree to this language. If they have some tweaks, they have some minor adjustments, they have some things. There are language pieces that the board says, you know what, if the union comes back and says they're good with it, then we're good with it. If the union comes back, or I should say association, sorry, we all use union around here. If the association says, hey, we're good with this, but please make these couple of tweaks, our board has given direction to the team that they will allow them to say yes and TA on those certain items. So I'm not sure where that's coming from, or where that, because there definitely are guardrails or parameters that are given to the team.
So Mr. Maine, you're mentioning that they have parameters around language, but you're not saying it around compensation.
So if the board has also given them, the last 2 rounds has given them parameters around compensation as well.
Why wouldn't they have done that 7, 8, 12 negotiations ago? We are all taxpayers on this call too. And they asked for 1.2 million at the beginning from the association side. And now the comeback is at 500,000. Why wouldn't you, why, you know, and you're talking about dates that need to be hit in order for, you know, for negotiations for money to be dispersed. But from the other side, when I went back and I attended negotiations, I didn't just watch them, I attended them. The other side made a lot of these offers. Number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5, I believe. So why now with the money is what I would ask the board. Why wait? And why, you know, and never in the past have they given their other side that negotiating power. So why just the last 2?
So I think we're in session 13. I don't know, somebody, that number may be slightly off by 1 or 2. We actually haven't had as many sessions as it seems like we've had, because we get started with negotiations a lot later, because our board, we've chosen historically to wait until we get our final FTE count. So we know exactly what the raise pool amount is that the board could give the team the leeway to negotiate within. MCEA, if MCEA was to bring a proposal forward that was a counter offer that was within the ranges that our team has been told they could settle on, they would have settled. But MCEA, the first, the third or fourth, I shouldn't say third or fourth round, 2 or 3 sessions ago, came back with a number that was astronomical and not accurate, because they were using an account that has funds that were already set aside and accounted for with other projects that we have going on in the district. So they saw it as, hey, there's a pot of money here that can be used. And Carter had to look at that account strip, and Carter had to go through a whole explanation as to why that account strip has money sitting in it, but that money is already allocated and accounted for, and that money is not on the table for negotiations. So that's where that back and forth comes in, where the MCEA says, hey, we think you have this amount of money towards raises, and this is where the district comes back and says, no, we don't. Here's our raise pool amount, and you will see a back and forth, 12 or 13 sessions, while it sounds like a lot, and I would want it to be done in a much quicker fashion, is actually not that many sessions, considering we are in open book as well, and we're going through language line item by line item by line item.
So I don't want to, we need to sort of, because we have to watch time. If it's okay with the superintendent, maybe there are some questions that we can send to you that we weren't able to get to here, and we can send it out to our group. And also, I'm hearing that some teachers that have resigned or left have not been sitting for an exit interview or getting an exit interview. Are all teachers receiving an opportunity at the time of an exit?
Yes, they may choose, that is a new policy that Jeff Raymond has put into place, both for a face-to-face exit interview and an electronic exit interview that wasn't going out to every employee when they resigned, but has since been fixed and rectified, that it is required that it goes out. Whether a teacher chooses to fill that out, Victoria, is completely up to them. It's voluntary, it's not mandatory. But Jeff Raymond has spoken to all of our principals about conducting exit interviews upon leaving. If it's not being done with consistency, then that's something that we need to follow up with our principals. But it is something that was recently since Jeff Raymond has joined the team, Ms. Deffenthaler has been happening, at least with more consistency than it was.
Well, if we find out otherwise, we'll let you know.
Please do, yes.
So I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank Mr. Maine and also Jennifer DeShazo, who I know was following the chat and trying to answer some of those questions. But we will send you some questions that we really didn't get to that I think our members are interested in hearing the answers to. And maybe we can do this again, but I do want to thank you for being here. And I thank everyone else. If you have any comments, any of our members, please send them to Connected Martin, and we will also follow up. So we hope.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
You're
Alyssa,
Yeah,
welcome.
thank you,
for-
Mr. Maine, for
Absolutely.
your time.
Absolutely, no problem. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening, everybody.
All right, bye
Thank you.
now.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so as co-chairs, we'll get together in the next day or so and just kind of kind of go over this and have some feedback. But are we keeping the questions that are in the chat so we have a copy of those?
Yeah, I'd say we
Yes.
could stop our recording, and if anybody's on here that has any other questions that would like to be addressed with Superintendent Maine, if you want to put them in the chat or unmute and let us know.
So I